They say your past defines you. That's a lie. Your past doesn't define you. It refines you. Welcome to the Mile Marker Mindset Podcast, where real stories meet real change. Hosted by Mark Keith, a voice forged by the miles and refined by the mindset. Shift your mindset. Shift your life. Let's go to work.
Listen, I know what it's like to sit in the sleeper, dead tired, mind racing, tears streaming down your face, feeling like nobody in the world could possibly understand what you're carrying. There were so many nights when something would hit me so hard, news from home, a memory, a breakup right before the holidays, that I'd have to hold it together until I was parked somewhere safe, and then finally able to let the tears fall. You know how you have to get some rest to drive safe, but your mind just won't let you? Eventually, you just kind of pass out from sheer exhaustion. Thankfully, those days are behind me. So tonight, instead of drowning in my own tears, I'm going to give you a message of hope. Still the same late night, but now I'm on the other side of it. And if you're in that dark place right now, I want you to know it will get better. I'm Mark. This is the Mile Marker Mindset, the podcast for people who understand that life isn't about having it all figured out. It's about setting real goals for yourself, taking action, and making steady progress, even if it's just one step at a time. Because every mile marker you pass is proof that you're still moving, still growing, and still very much in the fight. Right now, as of this recording, I'm parked at a Walmart just outside of Charlotte, North Carolina. And yes, I'm talking to you from the sleeper of my Walmart truck, as I am a Walmart driver, currently on my 10-hour break. However, by the time we are done here, I'll probably have about 6 hours of rest before I gotta get rolling again. So why am I doing this instead of getting some sleep? Well, that's a good question. And it's because I want to talk to you for a little bit about moving your life forward, especially if you feel stuck or like you're just spinning your tires in life. Simply put, it's all about setting real goals for yourself, taking action, and making steady progress, even if it's just one step at a time. Because every mile marker you pass is proof that you're still moving, still growing, and again, still very much in the fight. The great thing is that you don't have to do it alone. Personally, I love hearing from folks who are on that journey too, no matter where you are in it or where you're listening from. If you want to share a story, ask a question, or just talk about your next step, you can always reach out here to the show at podcast@milemarkermindset.com. Maybe you're listening to this in your own truck cab. Maybe you're in a warehouse on your lunch break. Maybe you're finally home after working a double shift, wondering if anybody notices how hard you're working. Believe me, I've been there, as I've spent over 20 years in supply chain and logistics, almost 10 years now by this recording, behind the wheel, and 13 and a half years loading, unloading, hustling freight, making sure shelves stay stocked for people who will never know my name. I know what it's like to feel invisible, to wonder if your story even matters, to have people look right through you like you're part of the scenery. But here's the thing. Every mile I've driven, every mistake I've made, and every hard lesson I've learned, it's all brought me to this exact spot. And I believe with everything in me that your road can get better too. But you gotta start somewhere. For me, faith has always been my guide. But if you don't have that, that's okay. I'm not here to preach. I'm here to walk with you, however you need it. You don't have to go through it alone anymore. If you're listening to this and life feels heavy, I want you to hear me. Your hope will turn into healing. Sometimes you just need to know when to reach out and how to ask for help. There was a night that I'll never forget. I'd hit what felt like rock bottom. I was exhausted, but couldn't sleep. My mind was racing, heart heavy, tears streaming down my face in the dark. I remember thinking, how did it come to this? How did I end up here so alone and so lost in life? That night, I realized just how much pain I'd been carrying, how badly I needed something to change. That was one of those moments where you either break or you reach for something more. For me, that was the start of climbing out. Slowly, painfully, but climbing all the same. And honestly, that climb started with one single thing. I had to get clear on what needed to change. I had to start asking myself, what do I want my life to look like from here? I didn't have all the answers, but I knew I needed a new direction. After my divorce, I thought getting my own apartment would be that new direction and a fresh start. A chance to prove I could stand on my own 2 feet. I remember walking through that empty apartment thinking, this is it. This is where I rebuild my life. But the truth hit hard and fast. I couldn't afford it. The rent was eating up most of my paycheck. I was buying groceries with credit cards. I'd sit in that apartment at night, surrounded by boxes I couldn't afford to unpack properly, wondering how I'd gotten so far off track. Fact is, I didn't have the life skills or the emotional strength to make it work alone. Simple things like managing a budget, dealing with loneliness, creating healthy routines. I was failing at all of it. It was so humbling and painful, even, to admit I needed help. Sometimes it's the hardest part. So I ended up breaking my lease, moved in with a roommate. I remember packing those same boxes again, feeling like such a failure. Here I was, a grown man, moving in with someone else because I couldn't handle being an adult. It sure wasn't the life I'd planned, and it sure didn't feel like progress at the time. But looking back, it was a step towards survival and eventually growth. That season taught me a lot about humility, about leaning on others, and about the slow, sometimes backward path from trauma to triumph. It taught me that sometimes what feels like failure is actually just learning to be honest about where you really are instead of where you think you should be. But the most important thing I learned, if you want to change your life, you've got to get honest about what you want to do next and start working toward it. Even if it's just one small goal at a time, you got to start somewhere. There was a turning point for me that I'll never forget. I had a friend, one of the few people who stuck around me through all the mess, who finally sat me down and said, Mark, you keep ending up in the same kind of relationships and you keep getting the same results. Maybe it's not just about them. Maybe there's something you need to look at in yourself. I remember exactly where I was sitting. It's my kitchen table while I was living at the house of yet another woman I was in a serious relationship with at the time. And the beers were getting warm between us. However, the beers weren't the only thing getting heated either. I had just finished talking to him about the relationship I was currently in, and of course, unhappily struggling in. Again, yes, the same one I was also living with. This was yet another relationship that had crashed and burned. And I was doing what I always did, explaining all the ways it was her fault. He listened patiently, like he always did. But this time, when I finished, he didn't just nod and agree with me like I expected. Instead, he leaned forward and said those words that cut right through all of my excuses. I didn't want to hear it at first. I got defensive, made excuses, all like normal. I started listing all the ways he was wrong, along with all the evidence of how crazy or unreasonable these women had been. Most of us don't want to hear that we might be the common denominator in our own problems. The truth is, sometimes it takes someone on the outside to point out the patterns you're blind to or simply refuse to see or aren't ready to see. And when I finally started listening, really listening, I could see it. I saw how I kept choosing the same person. I saw how I kept repeating the same mistakes, expecting a different outcome. I saw how it shut down emotionally the moment things got difficult, instead of learning to communicate through conflict. That was the beginning of real change. It wasn't easy. Admitting you need to change hurts your pride. It's very humbling. It means accepting that you've been a part of the problem all along. That was tough. But that's where growth starts. That's where you stop being a victim of your own circumstances, start taking accountability and responsibility for your own choices. That's when I started to set some real goals for myself. Not just, I want things to be better, but also be more specific. I want to be a better communicator. I want to handle stress without blowing up. I want to actually follow through on the things that I'm saying I'll do. I started breaking it down into small steps, reading more, going to therapy, actually putting in the work to become a better man, not just for myself, but for the people I care about. But here's what I learned through all of this. Through the mental notes I kept, the conversations with people, some who were stuck in the same patterns I was, which was kind of like asking an alcoholic how to stop drinking. But others had actually moved past these issues and could offer real perspective. This is where I realized your past doesn't define you, it refines you. Look, I had a past too. We all do. And it was pretty messed up along the way. But I had to set realistic goals and take action. I didn't really have anybody consistently in my life to guide me through the processes of meeting these goals. I had to figure out what I wanted, why it mattered, and how to actually start moving toward it. And that's what this podcast is about, helping you see your own patterns, get clear about your next step, and start moving toward the life you want 1 mile marker at a time. Look, I'm not a marriage counselor or a therapist or anything like that. But if your goal is to be a better communicator in your relationship, for example, we can talk about ways to do that. First, we'll discuss your current reality and figure out what got you there. Then we identify what you actually want to change. Finally, we'll create specific steps to bridge that gap. Because your past experiences give us the lessons, your future goals give us the direction, but the real magic, connecting those two things, is a practical plan you can actually follow. And by the way, at some point, you've got to stop using your past as a crutch. Yes, I said that. I mean, maybe you went through hell growing up. Maybe you didn't have the role models you needed. Maybe you learned all the wrong lessons. Kind of like I did all that stuff. But you know what? That doesn't give you a free pass to keep making bad choices or treating people poorly as an adult. Your past might explain you, but it does not excuse you. I'll say that again. Your past might explain you, but it doesn't excuse you. You can't keep blaming your childhood, your parents, or your ex for every mistake you make now. At some point, you have to take responsibility for your life. That's when things start to change. That's when you get your power back. Shifting your mindset isn't just about, thinking positive. No, it takes real work, and sometimes you need a few practical tools to get started. For me, that started with self-reflection. When I finally started writing things down, my thoughts, my struggles, what I was learning, I started to see the patterns, and I got honest with myself. I started keeping track of those lessons, writing them down in a cheap journal, ironically, I picked up from Walmart. Though I was never really big on journaling, I still did it sometimes anyways because I found it helpful. But what really opened my eyes was something I tried in a couple of relationships. We'd have this shared spiral notebook where we'd write down whatever issues came up when we were apart. I was on the road and she was at home, and we'd discuss whatever problems arose when we got back together. It was a way to work on our communication together. But looking back, that notebook became more of a written punching bag back and forth, more than something that was actually helpful. A lot of finger pointing, never actually owning anything, or at least not very much by comparison to all the blaming going on. And it was page after page of me saying I'll change, her saying she'll change, both of us pleading for things not to end. But we both knew it needed to end. It's just a matter of time. You ever been in a relationship like that? Eventually, that notebook would fill up so much, I'd realize, you know what? this really isn't working. That notebook became evidence of the pattern my friend would later point out. I kept trying the same approaches, working harder on communication, but avoiding the real issue. My role in choosing incompatible people and shutting down emotionally the moment things got difficult. Those failed relationships taught me something important. Effort doesn't equal progress when both people are avoiding responsibility. Communication tools only work when both people use them honestly. You only get out of it what you put into it. I started noticing more moments like that, times when I made a different choice and I got a different result. Rather, if it was a driver that cut me off in traffic, and instead of laying on the horn and getting angry, I just let it go. I stayed calm for the rest of my shift. Maybe it was a disagreement with dispatch where I chose to stay professional instead of possibly losing my temper like I may have in the past. Some things, small, pineapple. Small things, they were building into something bigger. Eventually, I put together what I call my mile marker system. It's a way to not just track where you've been, but what you've learned along the way. It became a method of recognizing patterns, celebrating your progress, and identifying areas where I still needed to grow. That's key. It's all about self-reflection. That system became the foundation for how I help people now. And if you want to try it for yourself, I put together a 30-day guided journal that walks you through the process. You can find it on Amazon. Just search for Mile Marker Mindset Journal. I use it myself, and I've seen it help others start making sense of their own journey. But honestly, you don't need a journal to start. Any scrap of paper will do. Just start. The important thing is to start paying attention to your choices and their outcomes. Start noticing when you handle something differently than you would have in the past. Start celebrating those small wins. Start learning from the moments when old patterns try to take over. You need a willingness to look at your life differently. To stop seeing your struggles as something that happened to you, start seeing them as something that happened for you. And then to turn what you're learning into action, set a goal, make a plan, and start moving forward. Don't worry about having it all figured out. Just start with the next step. As of this recording, my 9+ years in trucking has taught me a lot about life too. I'll tell you one thing. When you're hauling 80,000 pounds down the road, you learn real quick how important it is to control your emotions. One bad decision, one moment of losing your cool, and lives can change in an instant. And it's the same off the road too. But trucking also taught me about persistence. You don't just quit in the middle of a load because you hit bad weather or construction or a difficult customer. You figure out how to adapt. You slow down in the rain. You find alternate routes to get around the construction. Of course, all the while making sure you're safe. That's paramount. You also have to stay professional when the warehouse worker could be having the worst day of his life and he's unfairly taking it out on you. Some of us, I'm sure, are guilty of that. Those same skills translate to everything else: relationships, personal growth, building a better life. You don't quit when things get difficult, you adapt. You find another way forward. You stay committed to reaching your destination even when the road gets rough. If you don't learn how to pause and breathe, get your head right before you react, you can do a lot of damage, both to yourself and the people you care about. Man, there were times I'd have to swallow my pain and keep driving, only letting it out when I was finally alone. I remember one day in Northern Illinois, man, I got some devastating news from home, the kind that knocks the wind out of you. I pulled over on the shoulder as quickly as I could safely do so, just to let the initial shock hit me and then get my bearings. Once I felt steady enough, I wiped my face, got back on the road, and held back the tears the rest of the day until I could finally get home and let it all out. That was rough. That's what it means to keep moving forward, even when you're carrying more than anyone can see. It's not about stuffing it down forever. It's about giving yourself a moment to feel it and doing what you have to do and finding a way to process it when you're safe. And don't blow up. Don't keep bottled up. That's what real resilience looks like. It isn't never taking a break, but knowing how to heal and move forward. It's about learning that you can carry pain and still function. You can be hurt, but also still show up for all of your responsibilities. You can work through something difficult and still be there for other people. That one night in Northern Illinois taught me that strength isn't about being unbreakable. It's about being able to break and then put yourself back together again. You have to want it, really want it from the depths of your being. Real change takes work. Let me tell you, it's not easy, it's not pretty, and it sure won't happen overnight. When you finally make up your mind that you want something better in your life, that's when things start to shift in your life. It's not about flipping a switch and suddenly everything's perfect. It's about making the decision every day to keep moving forward, even if it's just 1 inch at a time. And then one day, you look back and realize you're miles down the road from where you started. You see the progress, the growth, and you can't imagine how far you've come. Listen to me. Change compounds. Every single thing you do to better yourself stacks up. One step leads to another, and then another, and so on. It might not feel like much in the moment. Maybe it's just choosing not to lose your temper, or writing down one honest thought, or just saying no to something that's tripped you up in the past. But the more you do it, the more it builds. And before you know it, you look back and realize you're not the same person you were a year ago, a month ago, maybe even a week ago. Who knows? But that's how real change happens. Not all at once, a little by little, compounding until you build a life you're actually proud of. They say it takes about 3 weeks to form a habit, 3 months to really change your lifestyle. And honestly, I don't know who they are, but apparently they come up with all these different things. Anyway, I'll tell you what, there is some truth to that, though. Change really does start with those small daily decisions, making the right choice at the right time, even when nobody's watching. It's not about being perfect, it's about being consistent. You keep stacking those good decisions, and before you know it, your habits shift, your life shifts, and you start to realize you're not the same person you used to be. Even now, after all the work I've done to heal, there are still scars. Sometimes they show up in my marriage to my amazing wife, Megan. You'll meet her on the show here at some point. She'll join me as a co-host every now and then. But the truth is, even in the best relationships, old patterns and thoughts can still creep in. Sometimes Megan has to deal with my feelings or intrusive thoughts that have nothing to do with her and everything to do with my past. No, that's not fair to her, but it's real and it's a part of the process. The scars do remind me of where I've been, but they also remind me of how far I've come and how grateful I am to have such a loving partner who's willing to walk this road with me. The important thing is learning to recognize it. Self-awareness is truly the first step. And what's more powerful is learning to talk about it, to communicate honestly when something from your past is triggered, instead of letting it fester or explode. Again, don't keep that bottled up now. I'm truly grateful and blessed to be with someone who not only understands that, but supports me through it. If you're in a relationship and you notice your own scars showing up, you're not broken. You're human. If you could find someone who's willing to walk with you, to listen and support you as you keep growing, you are already winning. Healing is a journey, not a finish line. Look, we all have a past. Everyone is carrying scars and regrets and chapters we wish we could rewrite. But here's the thing. If you keep living in your past, you're never going to have the future you want. The past, that's already been written. But your future, that's still wide open. You get to decide what comes next. You can only emulate what you've been taught. Most of us just repeat what we saw growing up, whether it's healthy or not. But here's the good news. You're never too old to stop learning. That's a choice you get to make. Start making it today. The past may have set the pattern, but you hold the pen for your future. You can't change where you've been, but you can absolutely change where you're going. If you're listening to this, you're already taking a step towards something better. Hey, by the way, let me ask you something. What's the hardest thing you've survived that you never thought you would? What did you learn from it that's made you a better person today? Most importantly, what's the goal for your current direction in life and why does it matter to you? Pause this episode, jot it down, and if you want, send it to me. You never know who your story might help because that's what this is about, helping each other. If you're listening to this and thinking maybe you're ready for more than just getting by, maybe you're ready to start moving forward, even if you don't have it all figured out yet, just know that's exactly how my journey started too. You don't have to have a 10-step plan. Sometimes all it takes is deciding what your next mile marker is going to be and taking a small action to start going in that direction. And by the way, you don't have to do it all alone. If you want to share your story, ask a question, or talk through your next step, you can reach out to me here at the show at podcast@milemarkermindset.com. I love hearing from folks who are on this journey too, no matter where you are in it or where you're listening from. And if you're interested in working together one-on-one, setting some goals, finding clarity, or just having someone in your corner, email me at coaching@milemarkermindset.com. Look, I've been there. I get it. And I'm here if you want to walk that path together. We are just getting started on the show. And on the next one, we're going to dig deeper into some techniques and framework. We're just getting started. On the next show, we're going to dig deeper into some framework and techniques, some real practical stuff that's helped me make some real changes. One step and one goal at a time. You are not going to want to miss it. There's some good stuff coming up that'll get you moving in the right direction. And before you go, take a second to think about a few things that you want to change or a goal you want to set for yourself, no matter how small, and why is it important? And what will your life look like once you achieve it? Write it down, keep it in front of you, and let that be your next mile marker. And please feel free to send it to me. Again, I always love to hear from you. Remember, change starts with getting honest about where you are, what you want, and what you're willing to do next. That reflection and self-awareness, that's just the catalyst. That's just the beginning. And just remember, your past doesn't have to define you. Make it refine you. Once your mind is made up and you know the direction your life needs to go, that's when your mindset starts to shift, and that changes everything. Goals, action, life changed. Shift your mindset, shift your life. And if you enjoyed today's episode, don't forget to share it with friends or anyone who might need a little inspiration. Your support means the world to me and helps us reach more people who are ready to transform their lives. I'm grateful for each and every one of you who tune in and take this journey alongside me. Let's continue to grow and uplift each other, creating a community of like-minded individuals striving for greatness. Together, we can make a difference, one life at a time. Hey, also, we have a space on Instagram where the inspiration continues beyond this podcast. Follow @milemarkermindset on Instagram and Facebook and all the socials for daily doses of motivation, behind the scenes. Follow @milemarkermindset for daily doses of motivation, behind the scenes content, and updates on upcoming episodes. And to help for connecting with fellow listeners, sharing your thoughts, and finding encouragement, you need to keep moving forward. Plus, you'll be the first to know about any live events or special announcements. So don't miss out on being a part of the growing community. Join us today. Let's embark on this journey together. You can also follow me personally @RealMarkKeith, where I dive into topics that matter most to me Hopefully you too. From my personal growth journey to the lessons I've learned along the way, I aim to provide content that resonates and inspires. You'll find exclusive insights, motivational snippets, and even a glimpse into my everyday life. It's a space where we can connect on a deeper level and share experiences and support each other in our pursuits. So join me there and let's keep the conversation going. Thanks for riding along with me today and letting me share a bit about my story and where this all comes from. If you stuck with me through it, I appreciate you. Let's keep moving forward 1 mile marker at a time. Thanks for listening.
The Mile Marker Mindset podcast is for informational, inspirational, educational, and entertainment purposes only. This podcast is not a substitute for professional or clinical advice. If you are in crisis or need immediate help, please visit milemarkermindset.com/crisis help or call 911.